All right, everyone, welcome. My name is Jasmine Hathaway. I'm one of the co-founders of PALS, and I am so pleased to welcome you all to tonight's webinar, which is called Building Your Business with After Loss Services. What we're going to do tonight is just have like an open conversation. And so we really invite you to participate and ask questions. We are going to have lots of time to address a lot of your questions, hopefully everybody, but we may not be able to get to every single question. But we want to make sure that we are answering the things that are on your mind. But what we're going to do is have a conversation with myself. We have Marni as our special guest tonight, and Rachel Donnelly, my co-founder of PALS. And so with that, I'm going to let Rachel introduce herself.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this Monday evening. And thank you for sharing your favorite ice cream flavor. I think I just saw Spam in there. So who's ever like, I've never tried that. So more power to you. But I'm Rachel Donnelly, and Jasmine said I'm one of the co-founders of PALS. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and I started my after loss professional business about 6 years ago. And it was just, based on my own need, seeing the administrative burden of death. And after settling both of my parents' estates and having to take care of an aging loved one and settling my uncle's estate, I saw that there was a real gap in the market in terms of logistical and practical support for those settling an estate. And I would have, I think, given somebody my firstborn if they would have helped me after losing my parents and trying to settle an estate while working full time and raising kids. And I thought, why isn't this a service? Why isn't there a quarterback for executors? And my business Afterlight was born. And now I work one-on-one with clients from all over the US, helping them, like I said, with those logistical practical aspects of settling an estate. When Jasmine, I'm just going to launch into how pals got started.
Great.
It was when I first got started, it was a real struggle to accurately explain to people what I did, right? There was really no slice of the pie that we had in sort of the death care industry of helping individuals from what we saw. And people would ask me, at networking things and as I was starting my business, well, what are you? Are you a death concierge? Are you an executor's assistant? What are you? And I found these three other women who had similar businesses to mine. And I thought, oh, thank goodness, there is a community out there of people trying to do the same thing. Actually, Jasmine and I connected over Instagram. And actually, my business attorney found her and said, I think this woman is doing what you're doing. You guys should connect. So Jasmine and I connected. We started meeting with the two other co-founders of PALS, and one of our first things was, what do you call yourself? And so one of our first goals was to create a name for ourselves, and we came up with After Loss Services. And then we said, you know what, we should create our own community. People started finding out about us. They said, could you guys teach us how to do what you do? How did you start your business? What insurance do you do? How do you charge? What services do you offer? And so we said, oh my goodness, there is room for us as a community. And we created Professionals of After Loss Services, and PALS was born. And we have now trained people from all over the world how to do this work. And as we say, we are the first community for after loss professionals.
Yeah, and we really like wanted to open up that amazing connection that we got from just me, Rachel, Esther, and Molly, the original co-founders. We just were very open and honest about what it took to be a an after loss professional. Like, what does this work look like? How did you figure this stuff out? We're really like doing a lot by trial and error, to be honest, a lot of error on my part, I will say. And so what we wanted to do was just help each other out, and say like, hey, this is what I tried. It definitely didn't work. So maybe save some time and money and like try something else. So we were just very open and supportive from the very beginning, and that's really at the core and the culture of PALS. And the way that we talk about it now is community over competition. So there is more than enough work for all of us on this call and beyond to get into this space and help families with this practical work that falls to them after a loss. And so we very much see this as a way that we can impact as many families and as many communities as possible, to open up, everything that we've learned, give you the roadmap that we put together by collaborating so you can get started serving families as quickly as possible. So that's a little bit about us and PALS. I'd love to have Marni introduce herself too. I don't want to skip her over her. Um,
Sure.
Marni, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you fit into this world?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Marnie. I am typically in Brooklyn, but I am at my great aunt Gladys's house in Martha's Vineyard. She just passed away. She was just shy of 103. I thought you would all appreciate that. So I'm saying goodbye to her and this beautiful house. And it's fitting that we're having this while we're here. Um, Anyway, a little bit about me. I am a lawyer by background. I practiced for about 5 years, and while there were many great things about being a lawyer, it wasn't my passion, and I ended up in entrepreneurship. And I started a business with my sister, and I was at a work event in 2018 when I got a call from a hospital that my mom had been in a freak car accident. And the first thing I thought, other than is she okay, was that I had a lot of her, end of life paperwork sitting on my desk, some of which I was supposed to get signed and notarized that I had not done. And I am smart, I'm organized, I know how important these things are. And there was a mental block around dealing with paperwork that had to do with her death. And so before getting to the hospital, I had to scramble and do all these things. And I will fast forward that she was okay in the end after many months of rehabilitation and hospitals and all of the things. But it was incredibly overwhelming to figure out how to care for an aging parent in another state when I had my own business of my own. She had gotten a kid a few days before. It was a mess. One thing that I realized when I was at the hospital, she was lucid enough to help me get into a lot of her online accounts. And specifically, her insurance information and, her banking information, all the things I need to help figure out how to help her while she was incapacitated. And realizing, if she had been in a place that she couldn't give me that information, or if she had died, I would have been in an entirely different realm of overwhelm. And it sort of pointed out all the conversations we hadn't had in our family that we should have had. And it really started me on this journey of wanting to, educate myself around death, dying, and grief as my parents aged, and, seeing, what was going on within my own community, my own friends, and our aging population. And so I ended up going with Grace death doula training in 2020. I then have done the INELDA Bridge program to sort of bridge the gap between the two different educations, and I've done some Death Vibes programming as well. So I've sort of tried to get like a wide range of different areas within the end of life doula community. And I started my business in 2022, and I started with mostly focusing on, the very end of life and, starting to network within the elder care space in that community. And quickly, realized that using, my education in law and, learning about, advanced directives and all of sort of the more logistical things that, planning in advance was really important. And how can I educate people, my age, in my early 40s, and sort of spread the gospel that, waiting till the end, as most of you know, is not when you want to start figuring out where all the passwords are, and realizing that there are not advanced directives in place, and all of those things. You want to be present with your loved ones. You want to be focused on you know tying up whatever loose ends and feeling supported and loved, and just dealing with those things, as opposed to the logistical and the practical. And I'm sure all of you who are practicing have witnessed when people have not planned in advance, that scramble at the end, and having to reassure someone that it's okay, things will be figured out, and not to worry, and sort of giving that relief to the dying, that it will be taken care of, and not to worry. Um, but I also realized in that moment that there is a lot of worry after a death, if things haven't been planned, or realizing the gaps in planning, even if they thought that they had done their job, well, while they were still here. And so I discovered PALS in 2023, and was really impressed by how practical it was, and how can I be helping people? It can't be in the traditional end of life doula role. That role ends at the end, and there is a mourning period, but that role ends. But I felt that I was leaving people in a space that they were like, well, what's next after the funeral, after people stop bringing over the meals, and stop asking how you're doing. There's all of this paperwork and logistics that fall on these families, and I felt kind of stuck, not knowing how to help, knowing that I'm really good at researching, I'm really good at sitting on the phone with Chase Bank or Verizon and negotiating down my own my own things. But how can I be doing that? And I really didn't know. So I heard about PALS. I had sort of stalked Rachel, I think, through Instagram or something else, just following her business for a while, um, and feeling really connected to the work that they were doing, so that I could help in a new way. And also, for those of you who are practicing, that as an end of life doula, it is so heart centered. It is so it takes a lot of energy. You're dividing, giving your undivided attention to someone and supporting them and the families at the end. And for me, I could only take on a couple of clients at any given time. I just didn't have the emotional capacity. I'm an empath. I'm a sponge, and I could only have enough space for a couple of clients. And I realized that if I wanted to create a career out of this, something that I devoted my energy and stopped having another job, I would need to figure out other ways in which I was adding on to a service, so that I could help more people, but in a way that didn't take up all of that like heart-centered emotional space. It's taking up space in a different way, but it's a different kind of service. And so this was a way in which I could help more people, offer service. Even if I didn't work with them as a doula, there are so many people out there that need the support. And that's sort of why I chose to work with PALS and get that training, so that I felt confident in what I was providing, and also that I had that community, so that I could ask questions and get feedback and feel supported, because the space can be very lonely. And how can I make sure that I have that support, so that if I am stuck, I have people to ask questions to, and vice versa, and also just commiserate, because you're taking a lot of people's sadness or grief, and so that is why I started with PALS.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Marnie. And I think you so accurately represented, why you got into this work, how you built your practice, and then, how you saw, oh goodness, how is this, like you said, that journey ending with a client, and then what does that client then need? after that engagement and that journey with them, is ending. And I'd love for you to share now, and we can talk a little bit about, in a minute about, sort of what a typical day might look for me, but I'd love for you to share now. This is a great place for you to talk about how, now that you've taken the after loss professional training program, if you have a client where you've done that end of life or death doula work, and then the client has then passed away, and then you're now supporting that family with after loss services, what has that looked like? Could you
Yeah,
share a little
yeah.
bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So many times, it depends on who has sort of hired me in the role as end of life doula. Is it the person who is dying? Is it the family? It sort of depends on that, how I'm having this conversation. But sometimes I'm bringing up in an initial conversation, if it's with the family, to say, I offer this service, and after a loss, I have found that it can be very overwhelming, especially in a fog of grief, to be sitting on the phone with Chase Bank, figuring out how to transfer money to an estate account, or, realizing that there's credit card debt and having to explain over and over that that person has passed, and, wanting to help out and negotiate. And so sometimes I'm bringing it up in an initial conversation that this is part of my suite of offerings, just so that going into it, that if you need that support, that I am here. And if I'm working with the families, oftentimes I'm developing relationships with them. And so when they ask, what to do next, first of all, I'm always, just helpful. And if I can point them in a direction, I am doing that. But I also, share after a loss. If I'm then just dealing with the family, then I, share, this is how I can help support after that. You need to be focusing on your grief, on taking care of your family, on processing, and how can you feel supported. And oftentimes people get stuck on like very specific parts of the process, like transferring the title of a car to someone new, or not knowing if there was a life insurance policy, and just being like, I didn't have these conversations. Then I can say, there are ways in which to search for these things, unclaimed property, things like that. So sort of sharing sort of the practical things. And oftentimes I'm also, coming in after, where I haven't worked with the person, but, through the networking that I've done as an end of life doula, people know that I'm in the space and that they refer to me after a loss.
Yeah, I'm sure we don't need to tell many of you, but it can be a huge bureaucratic nightmare for many after they've lost a loved one. There are several different data points that say it could take over 500 hours of work for an executor to settle an estate. And there was, I often quote an article that I read several years ago in Wired magazine that says, what do you do after someone dies is Googled 100 million times a month. So that shows you that people really struggle after a loved one dies. And why is that? As we know, we don't have to talk about, and we don't do a lot of pre-planning. So we are often left in the lurch of knowing what our loved one, what wishes there were, what assets, what liabilities they had. What do you do after you receive that death certificate? Where do you begin? What professionals do you need to loop in? How do you get organized? How do you communicate with other people? So that is really the crux of the biscuit, as we say, of the role of the after loss professional, is being that empathetic detective and coming in and making sense of the process, helping clients to get organized, sort of prioritizing, triaging tasks, streamlining a process, working with other professionals, and being that calm and that North Star for them to help guide them through the process.
Yeah, and a
So
lot of this, I started screen sharing while you were talking, just
Yeah.
give people something to kind of connect some of what you were talking about, because it is a lot. I know that we're kind of throwing a lot at you guys, but again, ask your questions, put them in the chat and we'll go through them. So as we're kind of talking this through, if there are specific things that you're curious about, that's what we're here for. But so we have a couple of different ways that we describe the work of an after loss professional, and I use like combinations of these different kind of roles and analogies to describe what I do. It kind of depends on who the audience is. But empathetic detective is one of my favorites. And what that is talking about is like when you don't know the answer to some of the questions that you have after a loved one has died, like it feels like you're asked to be an expert in all kinds of things that you have no idea about when you're an administrator or an executor of an estate. And it's kind of on you if you don't have help to do all this research and Google all of these different things. Like, I know that Rachel and Marnie shared a little bit about their stories, but my journey to after loss services was my husband passed away in 2015. And so I was getting, in my case, phone calls from his student loan company that was telling me that I was personally responsible for his student loans that he took out before we were even together. And so here I am at like 2 in the morning, Googling, am I responsible for student loans? Because I was like, that can't be right. I don't understand, but like my brain is not working well right now. Like I'm normally a very organized, capable person, but I can't process this kind of information. And so having an after loss professional at your side, that person takes that on and says like, you know what? I got you. Like you don't have to worry about these questions about like what's going to happen with this probate process and who's responsible for which of these bills, or all of these things that somehow you're expected to know and have answers to. We're really coming alongside and we're supporting the person, and we're also trying to take some of this stuff um, and help them make sense of it, help prioritize a lot of these tasks so they're not worrying about making mistakes or letting things drop through the cracks there. And the other slide that I just shared, just quickly, all of this information comes from a report from a company called Empathy. And so it's a little dated right now, but I'm pretty sure the stats haven't changed. If anything, they may have gotten more dramatic over time, I would venture to say. And so what we're talking about here with this time cost is this big survey that they did of all of these families serving in this capacity, and they're estimating that it took 420 hours of work, right? So like we're talking like 13 months, 20 if the estate goes through full probate. So what's falling on these families is a lot more than like just some initial forms, to claim 401ks. Like this is ongoing work that differs in every case. Every person is unique, so every estate is unique, but it ends up taking so much longer than most people think it will.
We're getting a lot of questions that I'd love to address in the chat.
Sure.
So we've talked about what a natural loss professional is, and I'd love to also tell you what we aren't. So we are skilled project managers. We are coming in to walk alongside the executor, the administrator, the trustee. So wherever you are and wherever you hang your hat, we're coming along and walking alongside that legally appointed role in your state to help clients manage their roles as the legally appointed representative of the estate. I know that some of you are maybe in California, and there's PFAC, the Professional Fiduciary Association of California, and there has been sort of a move towards the professionalization of this role. Some trust companies, of course, attorneys will take on serving as the professional fiduciary. That's not, what we're doing here. We are that like I said, skilled project manager, that quarterback for the executor. We are not making financial decisions for a client, managing money, managing investments, or anything like that. So we are not the legally appointed fiduciary for the estate. Um,
Also
we
not the executor for the estate. We're not
Correct.
serving as
Yeah.
the
Yes,
executor, right?
correct. Some after loss professionals do offer fiduciary services, or they may be daily money managers, they may be professional fiduciaries. But at PALS, we're teaching you how to be that skilled project manager to walk alongside that legally appointed role. So just to give you a little scenario, most of my clients are referred to me by a probate or T&E attorneys, trust and estates attorneys, and they will have a client who they are helping to open, and then of course open the estate and settle the estate. And the client is saying, what about this? What about the car? How do I get the how do I find out the assets and the debts of the estate? What do I do about their Hummel figurine collection? What do I do about all these different things? How do I reach out to Chase Bank? And so a lot of times the attorney is saying, you know what, you need to reach out to Afterlight. They're going to help you to get organized. They're going to help you to, create a plan, and then to address those specific tasks that you need help with as the executor. So if that's giving you that sort of understanding of what a typical engagement for me looks like, that's just a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I would say that, like, most attorneys are not doing the day-to-day work, of these little tasks. They're not helping you fill out the life insurance policy information, or making sure that if there was like a TOD, a transfer on death to the account, they're not getting that paperwork for you and making sure that you've sent it in. You could ask them to do that, but they're going to charge you the $600, $700 an hour. After loss professionals aren't charging at that rate, they're charging less. And so it's saving a client time, it's saving a client money, but you are communicating with the attorney, you're communicating with the accountant, you're making sure that things are moving along, you know, and that there's like a task list that executors are able to follow, because most executors are just a spouse or an adult child. They have not been trained in what to do when someone dies. And so it's giving them, basically coaching and or taking a lot of the tasks off their plate, depending on how you choose to do this role.
Yeah, I love, Danielle, that you said we're like an aftercare planner. Absolutely. Some people call us, organizers. Some people call us, after loss coaches, right? So whatever you want to call us, as Marnie said, we're coming in and helping to make sense of the process. A lot of times we're helping our client to figure out, what form does Vanguard need to roll over that account. So we're helping to be that detective, and figuring out all the different forms, and then helping them to get as close to the goal line. They're grieving. They've just lost their loved one, and they are mired down in bureaucracy and red tape, and we're helping um, to pull up some of that tape and get them a little bit closer in terms of settling their loved one's estate. I do see another question of what sort of background do you need? We have had all different sorts of individuals with all different types of backgrounds. We've had, Marnie, who's an attorney. We've had a doctor. We've had paralegals. We've had social workers, professional organizers, senior move managers, of course, a lot of death doulas, some other ones. Jasmine, what am I forgetting? But
We've had patient advocates, we've had therapists, we've had all kinds of different people who come to
You've
this.
had funeral directors.
Oh yeah,
There was one
funeral
in mine. Yep.
directors. Yes.
Carly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are all kinds of different ways that you can come to this work, and
Nurse.
there's really no like background necessary to make you successful in this role, especially because What you're really providing to your clients is your calm guidance throughout a very overwhelming process. And so what we try to do with our program is really give you some tools to understand how to find the answers to the questions that your clients may have. There's no possible way that we could give you all of the answers to all of the things that your clients may want to know, but we want to set you up for success and give you some of the processes and best practices to know how to help people with this particular kind of work that falls to them. And so, I also saw a question Lisa had about our referral networks that I wanted to touch on real fast too. I think that is a really important part of the way that we understand after loss professionals to be the most successful is by having a strong referral network that includes all kinds of different people who may encounter families who have lost a loved one. And so I bet if you brainstormed, you could put some of your ideas in the chat of what kinds of professions might be good referral partners for an after loss professional. Rachel already said estate and trust attorneys. I get referrals from financial advisors, from therapists. Grief therapists are good referral networks for me. I have a relationship with hospice in the area. I also have some patient advocates who are helping seniors in the last moments of their life in a lot of cases who um, are happy to connect me with the families who they've built relationships with over the course of their engagement. So yeah, I think that's really important because it is such a personal and like trust driven field. It really does require the family being willing to be open to your help and being open to getting assistance with some of these things that they may find very private. Wouldn't you say? Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of
100%.
questions coming in. Where should we go next? Rachel, Marnie, any thoughts on which question we should field next?
Um,
Sorry, it was just showing me that my internet is not working.
Oh
But
no.
hopefully, can you
Okay.
still hear me?
Okay,
Oh, all
we
right, I'm
got
here.
we got some upvotes for fees, talking about our rates. Um, okay, can we still hear each other?
So,
Yes.
yep.
Okay.
yeah. So these are all things, just to sort of back up, these are all things that we struggled with when we started as after loss professionals before we even had the word for after loss professionals. Who do we network with? How do we structure our services? Who do we offer our services to? How long should the engagement be? What kind of insurance do we need? What should we put on our websites, right? What sort of technology stack should we use to make our business really flow and be seamless? And so these are all things that we really struggled with when we each started our own business. And one of the reasons that we came together as pals. Because let me tell you, did we make some blunders as we started? I know I did. Uh, so, I will say, as you're getting started, one of the things we strongly recommend is that you charge an hourly rate. You don't know how long this is going to take, how much time tasks are going to take you, what different tasks you'll be doing. And so in our training program, we're teaching you not only the different types of tasks that you'll be doing and how to complete them, but then what are the different types of ways that you can structure yourself as an after loss professional? So I'd
Yeah,
love, Jasmine, for us to talk about the ways that you and I differ as
sure.
after loss professionals. I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah,
I saw one of the questions was about authorized access to an estate.
yep, and that's a great like window into this. So I started as an after loss professional. thinking that I would just take everything off of my clients' plates. Like they're not going to want to do this stuff. I'm going to try to do it all for them. And what I quickly found out, especially working with a lot of widows and widowers, is that it's really actually not something that they're looking for to hand me all of the things that they have to do for their spouse. And so there's often like a piece of like honoring their loved one or grieving by going through the work themselves and actually doing piece by piece and understanding how everything was set up, when, how their spouse went through and set up their internet or like whatever it is. It's almost like it's closing down a piece of their life, but then it's also making sure that they're equipped to build their own life that doesn't include that spouse. What does that even look like? And so a lot of what I'm doing as an after loss professional is I am coming alongside my client and coaching them through what this looks like, how to do this, because I really want them to feel empowered and have this thing that they can do, that they can sort of put their hands around and feel like they have made some progress, because a lot of the times it's a big black tunnel. That's what it felt like to me. It's really hard to see what the end is going to look like. And so it's so gratifying for me professionally and personally to see what people are like in the beginning when I first meet them. And then at the end, when we have a long list of things that we've worked through together. And so I'm really serving as their like accountability partner. I am cheerleading the heck out of their achievements. Like that's a big part of how I show up for my clients. And really just showing them that they can do this, that this is going to be okay. And so that doesn't require me to log in to any accounts. That does not require me to have permission to act on my client's behalf because I am there with them, but they're the ones doing the actual work. So that's how my services are really structured. Rachel, how is yours different from that?
Yeah, and I really, look to serve the client who was a lot like me, right? The adult child who's in the sandwich generation, who's had, an aging parent, or a aunt or an uncle or someone who's passed away, and they're in charge, and they're a working executive. Maybe they still have children at home, and I'm taking on that proxy role. I'm helping to not only, of course, get them organized, triage tasks, but I'm taking tasks off their plate. So a lot of times I get my clients to sign an authorization for communication form, which allows me to reach out to companies and say, hey, could you let me know what's the process for rolling over this account? What do we need to do to close this account? Or can you close it for me if it's, say, a LinkedIn page or something like that? So a lot of times I am taking on that role to either, like I said, complete those tasks or get them as close to the goal line as possible. Marnie, what about you? I know, is yours a blend of those or one or the other?
Yeah, it's a blend. It really depends on what the client needs. If they are overwhelmed and they just cannot get through the tasks, I'm doing as many as I can for them. And like, Jasmine said, sometimes it actually helps through the grieving process to be feeling productive. Sometimes it puts off the grieving process. It really depends on that person. But, for instance, I'm working with a client now. I worked with the spouse as a death doula for the last 5 months of her life. And I'm now working with the surviving spouse on making sure that everything is taken care of. She's an attorney. She is very capable. She wants to be productive, but she is foggy. She is in the fog of grief and she just cannot, she keeps pinging from thing to thing. And so, what, we are working on is, today we went through the credit card statement and saw what are all the recurring statement, what are all the recurring charges, what were on the spouse's account, accounts and, that we need to transfer. And so part of it was just information gathering and then, giving her, okay, we're going to do two tasks over the next, week. Like, you just have to do two. Like, can we do that? And she texted me like an hour ago saying, I just got off the phone with Geico. I figured out what I need to do. And yes, it's that cheerleading. And so it's making sure that things continue along, but meeting the client where they are and what they need. For her, she, hadn't, didn't do the funeral right away, wants to do a celebration of life later on. So that's also in, making sure that she's getting the support she needs around that. So it really depends.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. Yeah, I think what's really cool about joining this industry as it's being developed, we are very new in the creation of this niche, I would say, is that you have a lot of freedom to define your services in a way that best aligns with your strengths and really like is the way that you want to show up for your clients, is the way that you want to structure your services. And so I would say the same thing goes for all kinds of different aspects of this work, because no one's really going to come into the relationship with you with any kind of preconceived notions, right? They're looking to you to help them understand who you are and what you can do for them. And so you really education is such a huge part of this kind of a role. And you really need to kind of embrace that and understand that there are so many aspects of, this work and how you show up as an after loss professional where people are going to be looking to you to learn about like what this is like, and what kind of role you can play to help ease this burden that falls on families.
There was a question about hourly with or without a minimum. Some people do, hourly packages, 5 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours, depending on, the size of the estate and sort of your guesstimate of what you're going to do. Sometimes, if someone is just sort of confused and wants some, information, I'll say we can do 1 hour and you can ask me anything. And then if you need more support after you have the initial guidance, go, like we can discuss that too. So for me, it's not a minimum. And then I do a lot of my work remotely, which is really great for me, for the client that I was working with, who I was just talking about. Like, I was there in person a lot when we were working as an end of life doula. When she passed, the spouse has mainly wanted to work just on the phone, remotely, and that's okay too. So it also allows you to have a little more freedom and flexibility of where you're working from. And also, it allows you to work with people. I'm only working with end of life doula clients in Manhattan and Brooklyn. That's as far as I can go physically. But I'm working with people across the country when it comes to after loss. So that also opens up the ways in which you can support people, who, we, I don't, I don't work, whoever wants to work with me, like, can. It's not, just in Brooklyn or Manhattan. So that's helpful as well.
Yeah, I really love how flexible this work can be and how I can serve clients all over the country. And what I just would say about that is that again, you don't have to feel like you are an expert in all the things that may affect every estate in every county and every state in the country. So, I mean, I just had a client who said, "Have you ever done a case of probate in Maine before?" And I said, no, I have not done that. This will be my first time doing probate in Maine, but let me just clarify what my role is here. I'm not a probate attorney. We're going to work with a probate attorney. We're going to follow their guidance on how to do probate in Maine. And so my job is to help support you and help you show up for these appointments and take the notes that I need to take from that attorney so you can understand exactly how this is going to play out in your particular circumstances. So it's actually not hard. You're not really limited by any kind of like geographical barriers or, like knowledge of every single unique facet of a state's weirdness. You can do this work from wherever, which is awesome. Okay, I think we need to talk about the course because I'm seeing a lot
Yeah, I
of
think so.
questions that will be answered if we just talk about the course a little bit more. So I have some visuals. I think that will help. So let me get that shared and we will talk about what to expect if you are thinking about this. All right. Rachel, do you want me to just go through it or do you want to say anything before we get started? Okay, perfect. Okay, so if you are thinking about offering after loss services, if what we're talking about is resonating with you, um, PALS is here to support you along this journey. And so typically what people start out with is becoming a member of PALS, but you don't have to be a member of PALS in order to be an after loss professional. So this middle badge here is what you get when you complete the training. And we have a few different ways that we're offering the training. Right now, the currently available option, if you're ready to go, need to get started right away, it's a self-study option, which is totally self-paced. And it's 6 modules, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then we also have upcoming opportunities to do it in person. And then at the beginning of next year in the spring, we'll have a cohort model, which is how the course was originally designed with video modules that you watch on your own. And then every Friday, we come together for a live Zoom session with your cohort, and we talk about the homework and the case studies and the different things that you've learned along the way. The final step is this certified after loss professional. And this is once you're actually a practicing after loss professional, you're eligible once you've worked with 5 clients. And there's an exam and client plans that you'll need to submit along with references that really shows that you are like the best of the best in this field. So PALS members, this is really our community opened up to you. So this is where you get discounts on all of our courses and other offerings. There's lots of continuing education on a monthly basis, and then a backlog of libraries of videos that we've done on specific topics related to after loss professionals. You get a listing on the Find a Pro directory, and then there's also connection where people are answering and asking questions 24 hours a day. And so that's really the space where you can ask all of your most random questions, connect with other people who are in the same kind of boat that you are, and know that this is a space focused for after loss professionals. So if you would like to become a member, what we're doing today is we are offering an additional $500 off that after loss professional training self-study that I mentioned. So you can become a member, and that is $250 a year. And then once you are a member, and this is the little QR code, you register for the training and enter the coupon code BEYOND. And this is what it looks like in our community. So once you've joined us, you'll see Find Your Circle, and there's resources and a member store over on the left. And that's where you'll find the course and lots of other things too. So Rachel, I need to take a break from my voice. Can you talk about the course for just a minute?
Absolutely. Can everybody hear me? I'm sorry, my internet keeps saying my connection is unstable. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay, awesome. So we have taken all of our blunders, all of our mistakes, and curated this into a one-of-a-kind course where we are teaching you not only how to do the work of an after loss professional, but how to, like I said, market yourself. What are red flags to look for in clients? What technology do you need? What insurance we recommend? And we have put together templates, documents, pricing and service delivery guides, case studies based on real client scenarios. And then this has all been curated, like I said, into this training program that walks you step by step through our 6-module training program so you can really hit the ground running. It's what I wish I would have had before getting started and before making all the different mistakes. So we talk about What is an after loss professional? What is the scope of this work? What do we stand for at PALS? What are the different types of after loss professionals? What does estate administration mean? What are the different tasks and the different things that need to be done to settle an estate, from closing a Netflix account to figuring out what to do with somebody's 2001 Lexus, right? We're teaching you all the nitty-gritty details, and how to actually do the work, systems and processes, how we, with the technology that we have taken and using to really um, make our work more seamless, um, and then how to market your services, what to put on your website, and then pulling it all together with case studies. These are actual case studies taken from our own clients that we have put in, case studies you can really learn from what we have done with actual real clients.
Yeah, we always get a lot of positive feedback about the case studies really helping people apply what they've learned. So we have those kind of sprinkled throughout the course, starting at, I believe, at module 3, and then at the end we have a bunch of them. So what we've done with the self-study version, if that's the way that you'd like to take this course, is we have some recorded videos, so you can take a stab at the case study yourself, how you would approach each of these, real life inspired challenges that we've run into. And then watch the video to get the feedback from one of the PALS founders to talk through some places that you want to make sure that caught some of these red flags, or dug into these places a little bit deeper that require some of that exploration before you get started. So the whole point of this is to really help you show up with confidence in your abilities as an after loss professional. So it builds along the way, but it is designed to help you kind of practice in a safe space before you get out there and work with real families. Okay. Um, I am seeing more and more questions. I'm loving all these questions. Thank you so much for being such an amazing, engaged audience. I think we have, okay, Lisa, I believe you might have also emailed your question, and thank you for putting it in the chat as well. Are there organizations that bring in clients and have after loss professionals on staff versus having to start my own business? That is a great question, and we have gotten questions like this in the past. The reason why I really like this is because I think that the limits are, endless. Honestly, I really feel like there are lots of possibilities of different businesses and organizations that could benefit from having an after loss professional on staff, or someone who, you know, refers clients to you. They're really like you're white labeling your services as a part of their like boutique law firm or whatever it is. I think that it really just is up to you to find these like partnerships and these places that make sense, because again, after loss professional is a new and emerging field, and so it is up to you to find the place where you fit the best, the connections that you have in your area. And then as after loss services grows, there will be more and more larger companies, with hopefully within the PALS community, that are looking to hire help, right? That is a way that we support each other as well. I mostly refer work that I can't handle to other after loss professionals. So I've chosen to stay small on purpose. So what that means is I have a cap on the amount of work that I can take on. And when I get close to that cap, I'm definitely sending that work over to another after loss professional that I trust within PALS. Rachel, you want to speak to that? Rachel has world domination
Yes.
goals here in the after loss professional space.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be adding after loss professionals to my business to expand my services. So that is in my plan for the year, in the upcoming year, to add more after loss professionals to my business.
Yeah. Okay. So, um, All right, so we are just a couple minutes from the top of the hour. So I think I want to maybe share the QR code one more time to make sure that you guys have that information. Um, so the pricing for if you join as a member for 250, how much is the course for self-study? Okay, so the course for self-study is already discounted $100 for members. So the way that that breaks down is you'll see the pricing as $1,900, and then you're going to get the coupon code for $500 off of that. Right? So $1,500 for the course for self-study. I hope that's helpful. Okay, yeah, the discount code is Beyond right there on the screen. We are recording today, so we will also be sending out an email tomorrow with this recording and all of this information. So don't worry if you don't have a chance to capture it now. We are also more than happy to have individual conversations and follow up with you if there are things that you really had questions about that we didn't get a chance to answer tonight. So that is also an option too. So if there are things that come to you later tonight or tomorrow or whenever, we are here to help you figure out if this is a good fit for you, but we'd love to have you in the PALS community. Okay. All right. Yeah.
We do
Someone
have a
asked if there's
question
a
that
website, yeah, or if there's an email address for becoming a member. And for those, I think people who don't use QR codes are wondering what to do.
Sure. You can go to afterlosspros.com and that will give you the information that you need. If you'd like to email us, we can also send you that information. It's info@afterlosspros.com. Any of the emails that you get from us, any of these like newsletters or things like that, even the follow-up email that you'll get after the session, you can just reply to that and that'll get in touch with us as well.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
And that code would be honored because we attended this session, and
That's
even if
right.
we didn't use the QR code. Lovely. Appreciate
That's
that. Thank you.
Sure, of course. Okay, anything else before we wrap up for the night and say thank you to everyone for coming? Did I miss anything?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how many members do you have in your organization right now?
We have 88 members right now.
And do you have a membership listing regionally so we can get a sense of where they are regionally? I know you've got the ability to kind of search in regions, but I didn't know if you had a full membership list.
Yeah, so all we have publicly available right now is our directory of practicing after loss professionals. And so
Okay.
not all of our members are ready to kind of put up their signage on the Find a Pro directory. So we do not have a listing of all the members. That's really their call on whether they'd like to be publicly found before they're
Okay.
practicing after loss pros.
Okay, super. Thanks. It was fabulous. Thank you so much.
Great, great. Thank you. All right, everyone. I think we're going to wrap it up here. Again, thank you so much for coming. This was such a wonderful session. Thank you so much for being engaged and asking such great questions. We are so grateful for your interest and hope to see you very soon in the PALS community.
Thanks,
All right.
ladies.
Good night.
Thank you.